An island full of mysteries. Pirate ghost, union zombies, and werecats emerge in Zoinks! Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
Yeah, it's
Welcome back.
It's strange to see some Confederate soldiers in this, but hey, I did see some Union soldiers as well, so there's that.
Exactly. Welcome back to the Monsters vs. Men podcast. This is the bargain basement of the Monster Podcasting airwaves, where two friends try to stay alive and stay connected by chatting about weekly monster movies. This week, as we stay alive, we are discussing Zombie Island, specifically Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Alex, one of the things you should know about me, random fact about me, is that of any fictional character in the history of fictional characters in my life, I have been compared most to Shaggy Doo.
CC literally did it while we were watching it. She doesn't look like Eric.
I have been compared to Shaggy Doo more than anybody else
not Shaggy.
In my life.
His name is not Shaggy Doo.
According to Scoob the movie, I think his name is Shaggy
is that
Doo.
So? Good to know. Shaggy Doo.
Honestly.
You know what? Let's look up Shaggy from Scooby-Doo's full name. I bet it's ridiculous. What do you think?
Yeah, probably.
Shaggy Rogers. And his first name is Norville.
That's right.
Norville Shaggy Rogers.
That's right.
Wow.
Oh, that's funny. That is funny. I just know I'm a Shaggy Doo. No, but that is the yeah, he is the character I have been compared to most in my life as a fictional character. So
yeah, I believe it.
Yeah,
that makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh man,
yeah, man. This is sure. This was almost a part of our zombie series, Alex.
Yes, it was. But I don't think you took it seriously. So we just didn't elect it. I think it was. I can't remember why we didn't do it.
I didn't take it seriously.
I was totally did because I was 100% down for it.
I was 100% down for it too, but I think it fits better into this series anyway.
Yeah. I mean, this is a series of tour de forces, so.
Yep, for sure. Well, let's go ahead and get into it, Alex. If you don't have anything else to add.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
When reviewing a film like Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, it's almost impossible to review the film as a standalone experience because Scooby-Doo is, well, Scooby-Doo. We've got countless series, movies, and expectations going into a film. And when you mix that with our own personal nostalgia directed towards the film, our review will undoubtedly be full of our unabashed bias.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, Alex, what are your first impressions upon revisiting the old Zombie Island? And like we hinted at last week, what's scarier, this film or last week's film, My Neighbor Totoro?
Yeah, no, Eric, remind me, had you seen this one before? Or you had?
I have, but like it has been a while.
Okay. Yeah, well, so I guess to answer your question, while the underlying terror of My Neighbor Totoro shouldn't be understated, which is a sentence I genuinely mean, I do think this film is scarier and somewhat gorier in some really cool. I mean, it's definitely gorier in some really cool ways. I love the zombies and how they how they assemble and disassemble. You know, with their skin slowly coming up over their their bones, and then when they disintegrate, it just melts off of them. Dude, that's pretty scary, especially for a Scooby-Doo movie. And then the cat monsters at the end of the film are really great. These werecats. And the animation during their full-blown transformations is quite stellar. I could not believe how good the animation was when these scenes happened. Definitely brought the A-team for that, for those scenes. And then there are these other horror elements that I like really well, just with some of the mystery, the ghosts, the just like what is going on. Like there's a lot happening on this island, and I think I really like it, and I feel like I can kind of go on and on a little bit about the fun here. But I will say, Eric, this is a little bit of a it's kind of crazy. This one was a little bit kind of like Rain of Fire for me in terms of I was right to have liked this movie when I was a kid. And so, there's just a lot of elements here that I liked, and some were kind of refreshing a bit. But I'll let you go, because I'll come back to that.
All right, yeah. Well, there is certainly a whole lot on Zombie Island, to say the least. I do think this is a spookier movie than My Neighbor Totoro in a conventional sense. But after contemplating My Neighbor Totoro last week, this is definitely a scarier film for me as an adult, because you can feel the underlying stakes there. Whereas in Scooby-Doo, it has these spooky horror elements, yes, but you also know that everything is going to be okay. But let's get into Zombie Island. It really is bonkers. Zombies are like a small element in this somewhat overstuffed film, really. Yeah. It checks multiple boxes, though, for what we want to cover on the pod. Zombies, were creatures, interesting love triangles. What's not to love, Alex? Thinking about this film, though, and where it goes, it actually reminds me a good deal of a blend of White Zombie and I Walked with a Zombie in terms of zombie influences. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely inspired by some of the previous zombie films. And of the two you mentioned, especially I Walked with a Zombie, right? We got the voodoo here as well. And I definitely see more parallels with Walked with a Zombie than White Zombie, but there are some parallels there for sure. But there's another parallel from our Universal Monster series that's even, I think this relates to even more so. And though I think, because I think the character Simone, who I think is actually a really good bad guy, has a lot in common with something like Dracula. She lures her victims in to prolong her own everlasting life. And I really like that element of the story. And honestly, I just kind of like the story here in general. You know, it plays on a lot of the tropes of Scooby-Doo. It plays with them. It also leans into them and uses them to various effect in the film. But you actually do, when you're watching the film, feel a little bit of sad for where you see everyone when they went their separate ways, you know, especially with like Shaggy and Scooby working at the TFSA, because it's like such a soul-sucking job compared to the adventures that they used to go on. And I actually really like this.
And yet they make the best of that.
Yes,
right?
they do.
They find the best part of it,
contraband,
and make it like the best job in the world for them,
and immediately lose their jobs.
Yeah,
because I'm thinking. But luckily they had a few Gorgonzolas left over. I actually think what's cool about the film, though, is I actually think it actually somehow manages to feel like a reunion when they get back together to work on Daphne's, ghost hunting project. Which is weird, because it's like only in the first few minutes of the film. Of course they're going to get together. But that really brings to the forefront, I guess, some of the things about the film that I found refreshing. It feels pretty genuine in what it's wanting to do. And it's clear that when they were making this, they kind of really wanted to go all out. And it is possible that my opinions here are tinted with nostalgia, kind of like you were saying at the beginning. But I don't feel like I've ever really let that affect me too much in the past. Like, we kind of acknowledge it, but then also I feel like we've been hard enough on films we've used to love that, I don't know, I feel like our opinions here are still valid. But I really like that the film, while feeling a bit more grounded for this series, right, let's keep that little asterisk there in terms of grounded, it doesn't forfeit its ridiculous comedy, such as, Scooby vacuuming the contents of Shaggy sandwiches with his mouth without Shaggy knowing. And then, the ongoing joke of, that he's still hungry because that the sandwich was too light, and then it mentions it again. I think it maybe even mentions it a third time, why he's still hungry. I like these little jokes and nods to what it's always done, while also doing the thing that it never has done, and adding real monsters and seeing how they really deal with it. I think they plays with it really well when Fred rips off the head of the zombie.
Yeah.
And then when the zombie gets it back, it puts its head back on in such grotesque fashion with that noise. It's like that squelching noise as it does it.
Yeah.
It's I like the little horror and grotesque moments of this film. And I think that this is certainly an entry for Scooby-Doo, make no mistake about it. But the horror elements here really elevate this film on top of its pretty fun narrative, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Zombie Island really puts the main conflict of the entire Scooby-Doo series on the forefront.
Yeah.
Will the gang run into the truly supernatural, or will they once again confront a man in a mask? And this conflict between the natural and the supernatural is one that we're familiar with because we've seen it countless times in Monsters vs. Men, no matter what series that we've been watching. The tough part with a movie like Scooby-Doo is that you have to confront the question while also not changing anything essential to it by the end of the movie so that the series can continue on as it has and always will be. So in this case, yes, the gang does discover something truly supernatural, but no, they did not get definitive proof to show the world, right? They lost their footage conveniently. And it's the same thing with Fred and Daphne. Yes, they have something for each other, but it never can establish itself as something completely concrete because where would we go moving forward, right? These are just some of the difficulties with working within a series, not completely unlike something like Marvel movies in the MCU, Alex, in that, yes, they can veer a little, but they always have to get back on track in some way with the grand narrative of the MCU, or in this case, the SCU.
Yeah. It is certainly beholden.
SDCU.
Yeah, there you go. SDCU. It is certainly beholden to the trials and tribulations of being part of a ongoing, long-going series for sure. And, luckily in the narrative, Bo is there to help explain their way out of the situation if they have to explain why so many people, 3 people died on this island. But I would argue that my feelings about the film in terms of kind of what you mentioned about, things are going to be okay. And we know that at the end of the day, before we even watch the film. But my feelings about that don't differ from even something like Totoro or actually any children's movie. I never worry that a character is going to die. Actually, what is surprising about this movie is that 3 characters die on screen. There are 3 villains all die on screen, which is a little surprising for a Scooby-Doo movie. But when we don't ever expect any real characters to... So we don't really ever expect characters to die in children's movies, so when they do, it really does have a pretty big impact, which is kind of a dichotomy, I guess, of what we expect to see in adult movies. But what's weird here is that this is a non-theatrical Scooby-Doo movie that I don't really have big complaints about. It's 70 minutes. There's not enough time to really get bored. I enjoy myself here, perhaps a little too much at times. And the comedy of like Shaggy putting on a nice outfit for dinner, only for it to be revealed that he's going to wear the exact same thing he has always worn. And I love that I love the reveal that he does change clothes. It's just he only changes into the same clothes.
That's the best. That's the funniest sequence in the entire movie. Whenever he trims his beard.
Oh, yeah. Dude, it's so funny. Like, this movie has some really good gags. That's the best one. That series of gags there in the hotel room are definitely the best. But there's some other ones that are charming. And I love that the twist here in the film is that the menacing ghost of Morgan Moonscar and all the zombies are actually good guys in the story of Scooby-Doo, which is a surprising twist, right? I love how they reference it initially with the zombies by making them establishing that they are good guys in what seems like a bit of comedy, but it's actually a hint that they're trying to help them, and that's when if Scooby or Shaggy get stuck in quicksand, if Scooby gets stuck in quicksand and they're handing, Shaggy goes to grab a vine to throw it to Scooby and it's a snake, and then a zombie hands him a vine. And it seems like a bit of comedy, but it's actually hinting that they are actually trying to help. You mean notice that the zombies only attack the cats. They have been, the ghost of Morgan Moonscar is trying to tell them, get off the island. I like that these villains, the Confederates, Ghost of Morgan Moonscar, and some poor tourists as well, are all just trying to get them off the island, and they're actually trying to protect them, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. Real quick note. It's Terror Time Again is a banger.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Maybe
the music
not.
was so much better than I remember. I remember it being pretty good.
It may not be My Neighbor Totoro level, but it's still a banger. Now, to pick up on your last point there, Alex, I did have a question. I mean, yes, the zombies and the ghosts, they're good in that they are, I guess, helping our protagonist out in this movie. But I am confused why our gang keeps calling these zombies the good guys by the end of the movie. Because, and I don't know about you, but like what I saw this group of settlers that came into this island that were probably neutral, and they established a pepper plantation. They're great, right? They're fine. Mm-hmm. But then we also just had this nice little group of peasants, it seemed like, that just wanted to worship their cat deity, that are driven, by pirates into a bayou, to be eaten by gators.
Yeah,
that's not so great.
Dude, that scene is
not so good, guys.
That scene is so brutal.
Oh, it's so brutal. And Sage and I watched that together. It was great. But no, I mean, really, the only motivation for the ghosts and the zombies is simple revenge. Like they don't care about anything else except getting back at these werecats.
But
the werecats, all they cared about was getting revenge on them. So it was just like this cycle.
Well, the werecats were
the gang is
the
like, these are good guys.
The werecats were far past revenge. They were killing innocent people at this point, right?
Yeah, but they're agreed, because of the curse. But their initial getting back at the pirates was just revenge, right? But
then after that moment, they willingly killed people for 200 years.
Yes. So like the plantation people that had the pepper plants were
They were innocent.
they probably were exploiters of people, right?
Yeah, it's possible.
It's possible. But besides that, like the initial pirates that are presented as good guys again by the end of this film are not so good guys.
But think about it this way. Say your life's in danger, and the most vile man you've ever met comes into the room and erases the threat and then disappears into the ether.
Yeah.
He was probably a good guy in that 5 to 10 minutes.
I get it. Well, hey, Alex, we have talked a little bit about Scooby-Doo canon and how this film fits into the Scooby-Doo, the Scoobyverse canon.
Oh, yeah.
Well, MVM Plus today, Alex, we have a special Marvel vs. Men across the Spider-Verse. It may not be Scoobyverse, but we definitely get into canon and we get into our review, in-depth review of that film. We have a lot to talk about with that one. It's probably a longer episode than this is going to be. That's over at patreon.com/MVM pod. You can find that Marvel vs. Men and our entire backlog of Marvel vs. Men episodes and MVM Plus episodes over on patreon.com/MVM pod. Let's get into our awards, though, Alex. Compelling character, who'd you have?
My compelling character was Simone. I think she's a really great villain. I mean, the first hint is that she likes cats more than dogs. But really, I think she's like, towards people, she's shockingly warm and willing to kind of open up and talk, even though she pretends to be initially cold, right? So the cool thing is that it's all an act. And that really, I mean, it really shows how evil she has become since her origin story. She is no longer the fearing peasant huddled worshiping her cat god. She is now a mass murderer. And just, her and, what was her name? Lena? They've got this whole act nailed down. And so it's just, I don't know, you kind of wonder, like, what other things have happened over the years. Has anyone else ever escaped? I just want to know more about her character, and I just think she's really interesting.
Yeah. Simone's a good choice because, she's not a part of our gang, and she is this interesting, compelling character. Mm-hmm. I chose someone within our gang, though.
Yeah, I think it's a good choice.
I chose Fred. And the reason Fred stands out to me in this film is he is the skeptic, right? He is the one that has to be won over on multiple occasions. He's kind of the voice of the audience, the adult audience, in a lot of ways, in lots of these moments. Mm-hmm. But he's also, the interesting thing about Fred is that he might be the skeptic and he might be the realist in a lot of situations, but he's also so aloof.
He is.
He's so
he makes all kinds of comments towards other people that are. Yeah. And then Daphne's always like, "What the?"
Yeah, his interpersonal relationships. He's just such a dummy. So he's just a funny character. I don't know. Fred always cracks me up because he's a straight-laced dude that is aloof, and you can just imagine him as a real-life person, too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What about your most memorable line award, Alex?
Yeah, mine's when Scooby-Doo and Shaggy fall off the water and the gators or fall off the boat and the gators coming to him and they're telling the captain, what was his name? It wasn't Jacques, was it?
Yeah.
It was Jacques. They're telling him to turn. He's like, "I'm trying, but you don't turn on no dime." I don't know what accent that was, but it was not what I wanted.
I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, thank you.
Actually.
Thank you. Oh, But that's pretty funny. I for some reason I was thinking that line came from Creature from the Black Lagoon, but it didn't. I looked into it. Oh, what about you, Eric?
Good. Doug? Where? I think it's 4 times that joke is made in this movie. It's 4 times.
It's so funny.
It gets me every time. I really like it.
It's just so funny. And it makes you wonder, like, what is Scooby? Is he maybe not a dog?
No, the reality is he just doesn't have the awareness.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's true.
What about Can't Believe That Acting Award, Alex?
I'm going to give it to BJ Ward, who was Velma. I really like this character and her portrayal. And, she I like the moments where first she's in the bookshop because she's just so depressed. I think she does a really good job here. And then also when she's floating and concerned about her skirt.
Oh yeah.
It's really it's quite funny, and you can kind of hear the panic, but also the subtle, like, no one. It feels like nobody, and maybe this because as a kid I wasn't aware either. It feels like nobody is quite sure why she's panicking as much. Like, I don't know. It just feels like no one's aware of what she's so concerned about, other than the flying. I don't know. It's a funny performance, and I've always liked Velma as a character.
Jinkies, that's a good choice, Alex.
Jinkies, yeah. What about you?
I chose Jim Cummings, who plays Jacques.
Yeah.
The boat captain. I mean, Jim Cummings is just a legend. That guy, dude.
Yeah.
Have you looked up his voice acting filmography?
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
You know who that is? He's insane. Like, I immediately heard his voice. I was like, oh, there is Pete from, like Goof Troop,
Goof Troop.
But then I was like, I was looking him up, and he's everything. He's a lot. He's Winnie the Pooh and Tigger too. He's Pete from Rescue Rangers. Well, not Pete, from Goof Troop. He's the big fat cat boss man from Rescue Rangers. He is a lot of things. You got to check out Jim Cummings, and you'll be impressed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would know him from Pete because I've seen so much Mickey Mouse.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's a good shot award. What you got?
That's a good shot award goes to the transformation scene where they turn into the werecats. Yeah. Again, this kind of goes back to the animation. It's like almost like, oh, that's a good effect or good drawing award. But the animation there where they're popping out of their clothes, like, dude, it looks really good. I was pretty shocked by how good that whole sequence looked.
I think phase A of their transformation is even scarier. Like when they first, when Simone first turns into like a cat scary lady, right? Where she's not full werecat, but she's cat scary lady first. I'm like watching with Sage. And I look over at her, and I'm like, did I just scar her for life with this? I might have.
Well, I want to know in your review what Sage thought of it.
Yeah. She liked it. For sure.
Good.
I mean, today she was telling me she liked a different show because it was a little spooky.
Oh.
So, I mean, she's getting into the spooky, but she definitely feels the spooky. Thea, doesn't care at all about spookiness. He just never has thought about it. Levi would, turn a show off if it was too spooky.
Gwen used to love spooky, and now she's terrified of everything.
Oh, really? So you didn't watch this with Gwen?
No, I've considered it, and I'm still considering it, because I need to break this. She needs to be okay with spooky again. I miss her being okay with it.
Yeah. This one's kind of spooky.
It is. Might be pushing it.
Yeah. My that's a good shot award was the Harvest Moon shot from outside of Fred's window. Kind of like a sunset shot. Might as well be. So I had to choose it.
As close as it gets, yeah. What about your unique award, Eric?
So my scariest moment award was that moment when all the cats are surrounding the mystery machine.
Oh yeah.
I actually just think that's kind of actually terrifying.
Yeah, I like how he drives off with them, totally.
Oh yeah,
injuring some of them.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild scene when you think about it.
It is.
Some of the things they do in this movie, you're like, wow, they just did that.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, the cats that kind of creep in and surround the mystery machine. If there were that many cats around me, I would be freaked out too.
I would too.
And I like cats. I actually like cats. But that many cats, that many of anything, I feel like I'd feel overwhelmed and claustrophobic and get me out of here as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Mine goes to the "Why Are You Even In Here" award, and that goes to Snakebite Scruggs, voiced by Mark Hamill. Why is this character even in this movie? I don't get it.
No idea. But they do he does come all the way back around full circle at the end.
Yes, he does. And he shows up during chase scenes, fishing. He's just always trying to catch the catfish. He finally gets it and they ruin it. Shout out to Snakebite Scruggs, the knockoff Crocodile Dundee.
Exactly.
Big Mona.
Oh, that's good. I like it. Cool, man. Well, that brings us to our final thoughts and tier rating. I'll go ahead and start this week because I think you will bring it home for us today. So this film is my second favorite Scooby-Doo film from the 1990s,
oh,
Alex.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Are you a Witch's Ghost fan?
I'm a Witch's Ghost fan. Yeah. I am a Hex Girls fan.
Dude, speaking my language.
So this is only my second favorite Scooby-Doo film from the 1990s. I love Witch's Ghost. It's such a great movie. Zombie Island. Now, granted, I didn't watch Zombie Island as much, but that's because Witch's Ghost is awesome and it had the Hex Girls in it. So I was kind of in love with them, I think, when I was a kid.
What 10-year-old wasn't in love with them?
Yeah, and I wanted to be like... That's probably why I became a drummer, was because of the Hex Girls.
Amazing.
That's probably why we met, Alex, was because we were inspired to play rock band. And because of Scooby-Doo. So who knows? But back to Zombie Island. I think Zombie Island is incredibly fun and it's incredibly ambitious, which sounds funny coming from a Scooby-Doo film, right? Mm-hmm. But it's ambitious within the confines of the Scooby-Doo universe, right? I joked about it a little bit, but I'm also serious in that you have to work within certain rules when you're building a Scooby-Doo film. But this film builds upon those rules and breaks some of those rules, but doesn't go so far as to break the series by breaking those rules. It is spooky in a conventional sense. Probably one of the spookier Scooby-Doo outputs that you'll see. As I said, I watched it about the last half of it, the scarier half, with Sage, and she really did enjoy it overall and wanted to keep watching it despite being spooked out a little bit. So this is a upper gamma tier film for me. But I'll let you bring it home with your rating and review, Alex.
Yeah, this is my favorite Scooby-Doo film. Now, I was a big fan of the Hex Girls also, so I can't wait for Witch's Ghost. And I actually liked Alien Invaders, but it's definitely a step down, compared to Zombie Island and Witch's Ghost. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed the comedy. I enjoyed when they really leaned into the Scooby-Doo tropes, eating all the food and they become super fat at the contraband station, sucking the vacuuming the meat off the sandwich, just their, overzealous appetite. The peppers were pretty funny. But also, like, just kind of playing on some of the tropes, like Shaggy's clothes, and like you said, his beard. He strode his beard. And I really like the horror elements here as well. I think they really work for me. And, it's a low Godzilla tier for me over here. I think
I love it.
I think I can't believe I'm doing that, but I think Totoro edges it out just because it is more cinema, I guess. No, but it does edge it out for a couple of reasons, and it's how special it is and how different. But Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, it's a breed of its own, and I would recommend it to really anybody who has kids or watched Scooby-Doo as a kid. Definitely recommend this as a watch.
I don't know what you mean, man. Scooby-Doo Zombie Island is pure cinema, man.
Dude, you know what, Eric? They made a sequel in 2019.
I actually
to
saw
Zombie
that.
Island.
I saw that.
Yeah, no,
interesting.
Spoiler, I want to read one entry that I laughed quite a bit about on the Scooby-Doo Wikipedia, or not Wikipedia, but the Scooby-Doo, like, fan page or whatever it is. You know how they could chart, like, each character, and this is what happened to this character. Well, this is what happened to Simone. This is her.
Okay.
This is what happens in Return to Zombie Island.
All right.
She was dead.
Love it. That's funny.
So I guess she doesn't show up in it, or she shows up in a flashback or something. But I am
think that one
tempted
might be on
watch
HBO. You might be watching that after we wrap up this episode. You might be turning that on right now, Alex.
I'm literally turning on my TV to see if it's there.
Well, next week, before you do that, Alex, next week we're going to watch Monsters Incorporated, Monsters Inc.
Ooh.
We watch Monsters Incorporated.
Oh, you thought I was kidding.
Next week when we watch Monsters Incorporated, will our animated appetites be sated, or will our strong feelings towards the first two films of the series be negated?
Ooh. Yeah, I can't wait to see Monsters Incorporated and see whether these monsters are fated to scare for the rest of their lives, or will they make everybody laugh with tears in their eyes?
Go watch Scooby-Doo, Alex. Go watch Scooby-Doo. As always, thank you for listening to Monsters vs. Men. You can leave us feedback on this episode at mvmpod.com or email us at mvmpod@gmail.com. You can also follow us and message us on Twitter and Instagram at mvm_pod. Become a bargain basement at patreon.com/mvmpod and receive weekly bonus content, including special reviews, interviews, and host chats. And if you can't join it at this time, a review or a share always helps. Monsters vs. Men is produced by Alex Cornett. Executive producers are Kevin Alexander, Faye Basier, John Freeman, and Michael Herndon. Special thanks to our wives, Kama Rock Band for PlayStation 3, which forms Subblock B, Louis Loops, Senior Honda, Drew the Collector, our Instagram connector, and you, the listener, as always, for listening. Until next time, don't
watch Scooby-Doo Zombie Island on HBO Max. Or Returns, because, well, it's not on there.
And try to stay alive.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
I have been compared to Shaggy Doo more than anybody else
Shaggy.
in my
His name
life.
is not Shaggy Doo.